Golden Black Live, Kyle Charters, that's him, and I always love to point where the graphic is, and Alan Karpik, and welcome to the show. Lonnie Green and Matt Stout here also to join us in the green room, which is really right next to us. There's no green room here, and there's no great refreshments in there either, but they're eager to get on the show. And the coach has got, I'm impressed that he would even join us because he's got a whole weekend worth of meets at home and a lot of excitement going on at Purdue with respect to track and field. We'll look forward to talking to Coach Lonnie Green in the second segment as well. Kyle, what's been going on? I mean, a lot's been going on. And we'll start with men's basketball last night, and the Boilermakers really an important win, not a work of art by any stretch.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, that would be a compliment, but an important win nonetheless. Purdue goes to Rutgers, first time they've won at Rutgers or played at Rutgers since 1954, which is a long time before Kyle was born, not that long before I was born, but really important win for Purdue. Offensively, Purdue struggled, and I don't think I've ever seen a team struggle like Rutgers did for a 12-minute span in the second half. First
almost
half.
Unwatchable.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, tough game.
You had to be a fan of Purdue, or if there are fans of Rutgers, you had to be a fan of Rutgers, I think, to be watching that game, because it was pretty bad. But, Purdue did what they had to do. It got a victory on the road, which is, never entirely easy. I know the Scarlet Knights are pretty bad. But to me, what it does from here on out is I think that the path to the NCAA tournament is clear. Now, can you do it? I don't know. But the path is clear. You win one of the 3 games on the road, and you win your home games, and
win a game in a Big Ten. I think the number now, of course, I change it every week, as Kyle knows, but I'll say 21. The men need to get to 21 wins, would put them securely in the field. I don't know if there's any truth to that at all, but it sounds good. But they never mean winning the last 3, like I said, the last 3 at home, and then also stealing one, and be good for Purdue fans to steal one down in Bloomington next week.
Well, if you're 12-6 though in the league, the committee's not going to leave out a team that finishes 3rd in the Big Ten.
You wouldn't think. Purdue's RPI obviously is there's a real line of demarcation prior to last night's game. Illinois, and again, Joe Lunardi, who's really is very good at doing this, had Illinois as the low was at 47, and then the next lowest or highest, or however you want to call it, Purdue was 78th. It is important that I think that Purdue can get as close to as it can to a signature win. The only they're going to probably play 2 ranked teams. Well, 1 ranked team, probably Ohio State on the road. I don't know that Indiana will be ranked. And yet
some RPI improvers there. I mean, Purdue's 70, whatever it
78
is now.
As of yesterday.
But if they beat Ohio State on the road and they beat Illinois at home, that's going to get you up into the 50s, I think.
Yeah, and again, I think too, as I said this morning too, all road wins are good road wins, and I think it just was a weird game last night. It was like Purdue was playing offensively a little bit in quicksand, and maybe it was a function of the way Rutgers just could not throw the ball in the ocean. And Purdue's defense has a lot to do with it. A.J. Hammons has been phenomenal, though. I think he continues to show people that kind of what you always hoped you'd see from him. 17-7 last night, and yet in 4 blocks, I believe it was. He was, I thought, very good last night in a time where Purdue needed him to get some life into what was going on.
Yeah, who would ever guess that he'd be the one that would be bringing them energy? That
usually absolutely. But he's been doing it the last 4 or 5 games. I really believe that.
I have to admit, I never thought the light would fully come on for him. I thought, he was what he was. He'd been here for 2.5 years and hadn't really shown the consistency to be able to play at the level he's playing now. But we're going on probably, about a month now where he's been playing at a pretty high level, and he did it again last night. He was the difference, and he's making a difference in a whole lot of games consecutively for Purdue. And if they get in the NCAA tournament, he's the guy, no doubt about it. He got him there.
Well, and it's interesting too, and I'm not making this correlation necessarily, though it'd be nice if you're a Purdue fan that this could come to pass, and that is that you look at the fact that Purdue will be playing really for its NCAA tournament life from arguably the last week of January on, if the Boilermakers make the tournament. There have been some examples of teams, UConn, that have won national championships. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I would be just happy for Purdue to get in the NCAA tournament. But playing at that level and having to play with your backs against the wall consistently, I think, has got some advantages for Purdue, and maybe they're coming together from that standpoint.
UConn had a top 10 NBA draft pick.
That helps
on that team, and I don't think Purdue has that. But yeah, I mean, they're up against it. They can't afford, I don't think, probably not. I mean, unless they got two games on the road, I suppose. But I don't think they can afford to, say, lose on Sunday to a fringe NCAA tournament team, in my opinion, in Nebraska. Or lose to, Illinois. Those teams are going to be pretty evenly matched, I think, and maybe evenly matched come Selection Sunday. So they've put themselves in a position where they've had to win these games, since you said, from about a couple of weeks ago to now.
Yeah, and I think that, and you're being kind to Nebraska, I think the Cornhuskers have dropped to 13-11, and they've really got, they've been interesting because they were such a hot property at the end of last year with Tim Miles. They have two very good players in Petaway and Shields, but kind of like Rutgers at a different level. Rutgers had the same situation with two guys. They haven't had anybody else step up. Purdue has to be careful, though, because we've seen this in the past where teams will come in. This league is still pretty balanced from that point forward. This point forward, still there are a lot of games outside of maybe the Rutgers game when Rutgers comes back here, where Purdue will be a decided favorite, one would think. So
they've got to be better on offense. I mean,
yeah.
It's sort of weird that this team was so good offensively early on in the season. I know, they appointed scout, and they have players too, and they've done a pretty good job defensively on slowing Purdue down. But man, they're just struggling to shoot at times from the outside. You'd like to see Kendall Stevens, who was a little bit off it in the first half, at least last night. Not really sure what was going on there, but got better as the game went on. But see him or Dakota Mathias get going a little bit from the perimeter.
We've got some questions coming in, some for Coach Green when he is on the set, but we do have a question about Ray Davis. Obviously took a spill late in the game, which is kind of the last thing you wanted to see, because Davis made Rutgers got the game down to 8 points. Davis made a couple big plays where he had not had a huge offensive night. I think he only had 8 points at the time, but then ended up getting in well into double figures after that. But do we have any news on him? I don't know of anything new on him. I think everything is fine. He gave the thumbs up to the crowd, which at that time there might have been as many Purdue people at the what do they? That's not the rack. What do they call it?
Rack.
Oh, that is the rack. They call it. Is that right? Good. I'm glad you guys are here. So I'm getting old. I'm forgetting things. But they are absolutely.
At first, I thought he was.
Yeah,
I thought it was bad, but then you saw the replay. And I think he just bumped knees with the other guy. I don't think there's anything.
Yeah, and he is the last guy that right now that Purdue. He and AJ Hammons obviously the last guy that that Purdue can afford to lose. Certainly. All right, now let's turn we are obviously getting ready for our recruiting issue. We are going to get that done next week by this time. I don't know how,
in theory.
but it will happen. Just some thoughts on obviously last week signing day, but you've started to do some interviews to get ready for this as well. I know you've also been doing baseball and other things, but any impressions in terms of what we're going to see not only in the magazine but on this class in general?
I had an opportunity to talk to Eddie Wilson a couple days ago, and he's a pretty interesting guy who. Talked about the fact that everybody came after him after he committed to Purdue. Yeah. It was pretty wild. And he went through much of his recruitment. I think he had recruited or had committed to Bowling Green in July,
right, yeah.
I believe, and went forever without hearing from anyone, and was even starting to tell people that he was ready to look around a little bit from Bowling Green, and he felt like he was under-recruited and an undervalued guy, and I think he's the 18th ranked player in Michigan, which is a pretty good high school football state, and Purdue found him, and all of a sudden everybody else wanted him, but he decided to stick with Purdue, which I think telling of him a little bit, and telling of what the job that Purdue's coaches did on him. They had a few guys like that, not only Eddie Wilson but Bryson Hopkins, and of course not Chasman Turner, but that's sort of the ongoing saga. I don't even know if it's a saga because we haven't heard anything from his camp about what he's doing. But I thought Purdue did a pretty good job overall of holding on to guys like Eddie Wilson. Yeah,
and it sounded even from Jared Parker last week when he was on the show that it got wild and woolly down the stretch for him and for the coaching staff to be able to hold guys on. We also we're doing a story on Danny Anthrop and on his rehab, and did a photo shoot with him this morning. I thought Danny was. I think he was just thrilled as heck to have a photographer in there at 9:30 in the morning. First, I think he's thrilled to be up doing his rehab at 9:30. You got to love Danny Anthrop, though. He's a guy that is he's one of the guys living the dream, so to speak. Obviously, had a very difficult day in Nebraska on the first day of November last year, but he said, that he's coming along well, and that will be interesting to see Stacy's story, because I think it was hard on him in the front end, but it will be interesting to see what Danny has to say. But that's such an important part of this. I think not only the offensive front end of this football team, but the psyche of this football team to have him back, and again, he won't be back until the fall in all likelihood in terms of being full go.
Yeah, to have him back and to have him feeling good,
Yeah.
too, because I think there was some concern from himself about being hurt. You would imagine that's pretty typical of a guy. But, yeah, I mean, you need him back next year. It'll be an interesting spring from a skill position point of view, because, I don't know if there's ever been a spring, and you probably remember more of them than I do, but where a team has had this many question marks at skill positions, because, list them all.
Yeah.
I mean, wide receiver, tight end, running back, quarterback. That's it. I mean, you've got to find some guys to fill in those spots.
Now, if we ask Coach Green that question, he would say, as coaches would say, it's all just time for those guys to step up.
It's the opportunity.
So there's opportunities there, and that is, I think there are a lot of questions, and it's there seems to be some underlying enthusiasm among a very young football team. And I thought Jared Parker was interesting last week, just talking about the tight ends. If you look at it on the surface, you say, well, Purdue's not even going to field a tight end next year. And he said, no, we got 3 guys that we think can play, and that will be interesting to see. And the coaches got to start with that confidence. There's no question that will bear. But it will be a very interesting spring just to watch that. As you said, the first snap on the first day of practice will be.
Who's it going to be?
Yeah, who's it going to be? Who's going to be taking the first snap, and whether it be Austin Appleby, Danny Etling, David Blau, your guess may be as good as ours. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from that. We've got getting some questions, and then we'll answer one. Then we're going to get to our guest. Most likely road game Purdue can steal. You're asking the wrong guy and me, but I think Michigan State, only because some teams have gone in there and beaten the Spartans, and I think Indiana is going to be laying low for Purdue. But one thing I'll say about IU that I've seen, that Purdue defensively, if Purdue can do what it did in the first game, and that's a big if, but really make Indiana, if they can defend them and make Indiana miss, so to speak, Indiana has no answer for the inside game.
Yeah, it's going to be a different game.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a crazy environment down there, and they're going to be loaded for bear for that one, I'm certain. So
I like them at Ohio State. I think they.
Yeah, I don't know how you get that one, but I think Ohio State. I just was very impressed with their just passing the eyeball test. I know Purdue, they kind of slogged their way through the game here at West Lafayette, but I hope you're right. It's just been a hard place for Purdue.
If you look at the numbers, Purdue under Painter has not been very good on the road at those 3 teams. I think,
very tough place.
Stacy told me earlier, I think 5-17.
And that's just like everybody else in the league. And to be honest, those are the 3. Well, Indiana maybe not quite as much of late, but certainly Ohio State and Michigan State, 2 of the best. All right, we will take a break and bring Kyle will be back in segment 3, hopefully with Stacy as well, as she'll be back from her interviews. And we'll bring Coach Lonnie Green who will join. Kyle will actually be here in segment 2 here. He's not going anywhere. I don't know what I'm thinking here, but we'll have Coach Lonnie Green join us, and we'll talk Purdue track and field, and it ought to be very interesting for segment 2. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.